All right, guys. So I'm back now on film. Just wanted to go over a couple of pointers before we really get to cracking. I went ahead and cleaned my bolts. I gotta still clean my pressure plate bolts. But what I've been using on this build is I kind of gotten away from using brake wash, parts wash for a lot, and I have this 90% alcohol that seems to clean. I mean, as long as it's not heavily greased and oiled, it seems to prep and clean these hardware pieces very well. I've used it on a couple of pieces, so I went ahead pre-cleaned my flywheel bolts. I got to do the same thing for the pressure plate bolts, and then also crazy thing is, like the younger me, I would have probably used the, the strongest freaking Loctite. Probably if they had it back then, probably would have used orange Loctite, which wouldn't have been good coming back apart potentially. So what I've been using on this build, on this everything that I know that would have to come back apart, to give myself some type of insurance. It's not only like the suspension pieces of the car. So those suspension pieces I've went with like red Loctite. But anyways, long story short, I've been using 243. 243 is like a little bit more oil resistant, and you don't need a primer to use this Loctite. So this is what I've been. Right, you actually, if the proper way, guys, if you didn't know, so you got to use a primer for Loctite. But anyways, go ahead and put my blue Loctite on. Another thing that you got to pay attention to on RBs is, I better show it. I'll show it on the flywheel, and then I'll put the camera back up. So here, if you look, there's this pin or a smaller circle, right? Your crank has the same thing. What you got to do is make sure that lines up to that. You can't just put this on the way that you're feeling on a Monday or Sunday. You got to make sure all that stuff lines up. So let me set this back up real quick. Then I'll go ahead and get busy on this stuff. All right. And just after you shaking up your Loctite, another thing too about these flywheel bolts is just pay attention to the way it came out of your crank. So that's what I pretty much did. Everything that I know that it's got to go back here is close to me. So yeah, just like I said, just kind of pay attention to this kind of stuff. It may be beneficial to you down the road, or even while you're putting this stuff together. I'm just getting it into the threads itself very evenly, and just making sure that it's not clumped up and there's not too much on there, and if it is, I'm just knocking it off. All right, so once you get those set up, you can kind of just put this back up on the car, or the engine, I mean. And if the bolts aren't perfectly lined up, like you can see what I just did, just play around with it a little bit until you get it to where you can feel it, where the bolts are going in fairly easy. That way, you know, you're not going to have any crazy problems. And just start it, whatever you do, start it by hand. And the other reason why I suggest definitely put Loctite on your bolts is I have a horror story of when I had my DA, and I don't know what engine build it was, probably number 3 or 4, but I didn't Loctite them, and I didn't get the bolts tight enough, apparently, for the boost that I was doing on the car, dragging it, and I mean taking this thing up to 9,500 RPMs. Um, and what wound up happening to me is the freaking flywheel bolts backed out and jammed up against the pressure plate, and I thought I had destroyed the engine or something, driving like an idiot. But thank God I didn't. But what I wound up doing was messing up my flywheel and all, so I had to get all that stuff over again just because of negligence on my behalf. And from that point on, I learned the value of making sure everything was tight, but also on something like this in a high performance application, especially using some type of thread locker. And then what I was going to say is what I was getting at. Some of these Loctites, man, are so aggressive. You run the risk of, if you got to take it back apart, you run the risk of it actually messing up the threads of the crank. And if you do that, you know that's ball game. So now you got to get a whole new crank. I'm not happy. You see what I'm doing? I'm taking this back out. So I either do it by hand, but I'm just not happy. Must be dirt. Something in here. Clean all that out. Yeah, I just wasn't happy with the way that was threading in that hole. You can see it threaded in fine in all the other ones by hand. Okay. Right. So it's going in there by hand. Alright. Okay, I like that. Good. So don't be afraid just to stop, take it back out and re-examine it, especially on your anything pertaining to the engine for sure. And once you're done getting your bolts all started by hand, you can go in like a star pattern or just, opposites of each other so you work your way all the way around. Now, another thing I want you guys to notice is I gingerly hit it with my gun to snug them up, but it's still not tight. So I'm not going to run that like that. But I just wanted to go all the way even around, make sure she's nice and seated. And I did have it a little crooked one spot, but once I snugged it, she kind of, she pulled herself straight. You see me tap it on with the hammer to make sure everything was fine. But by me having to move it, wiggle it around in the position, it kind of, it got loose a little bit from the way I had it. But anyways, like I said, just snugging it up, I was able to get everything nice and plumb. Now, go ahead and stand on it. And then what you want to do is, once you get it tight, you want to go over this with your torque wrench, just to make sure you got it torqued down. Flywheel bolts on the RB is anywhere from, I want to say it was like 108 to 112 foot-pounds, right? So I have two different size torque wrenches. I have this one here that goes to foot-pounds, and I have this one. The reason I'm going to use this one will go up to 115 foot-pounds, but it's at the top of its chart, where this one is rated 250 at the top of its chart, but it can go up to 275 foot-pounds. So I have a lot more precision with this one as opposed to maxing that out and trying to get the torque. But I mean, if you were in a bind and that's all you have, that's all you have. Back to this, guys. All right, guys, so as you can see, that worked. I was able to put a bolt here in one of my, where the transmission would mount. And that was enough to get, get that on there, just to make sure she torqued. And as you heard those clicks, those nice, loud, aggressive clicks, that, yeah, she's torqued. So the flywheel's ready to go. Shouldn't have a problem with that. So just hold tight. I'm gonna go ahead, clean everything up, get it prepped. Then I'll talk a little bit about the basket and then how you put your clutch pack in there. All right, guys, so ready to get this buttoned up. First thing I want to talk to you about was the orientation of your wave washers. And pretty much, hopefully you can pick this detail up on camera. So that's a wave washer. And pretty much it's like conical shaped. And you want the conical shape to butt up, or like the bevel. You want your bevel to go to this on in here, right? So when you put this on the car, or on the, keep saying car, put it on the bolt and then onto the flywheel, you want your bevel to go up like this, and then your bolt sits in there. And pretty much, you don't need a lot, just like a dab of your Loctite. And again, if you get too much on there, it's no problem. Just wipe it off with your finger and then just wipe it off there. The other important piece to this OS Giken setup, I gotta get this tool out. Yeah, it's harder than what I thought. Again, the Japanese, I love them because they take so much pride in everything, even their packaging. So pretty much this is a hacked off input shaft from a GTR 5-speed transmission. And, once you get your packs set in, you kind of put this in there and you align it. Now, from what I'm used to doing is, I would put all of this together and put this in here and then take this out. However, OS Giken does not want you to install this pre. They want you to go ahead and load your clutch system into the basket and then put this in there as you tighten it, hand or, just snug it up and remove this. Then go ahead and torque it. And then you take your tool again and then you will insert it in there like this. And if it doesn't go in nice and smooth, it means it's not lined up. So they want you to loosen everything back up and then do that process again. So let me go ahead and get that over here. Let's set that there for now. Let's get the baskets over. And again, the one important takeaway that I got from OS Giken was just make sure, however it came from the factory, is how this thing goes in, right? So we know this here is going to go in first because, right, see how that plate looks? And then this plate goes in first or last. You can see the shape of this. And because what happens is your pressure plate pushes up against this to put pressure onto your clutch assembly, right? So you go ahead and sit that over here. And also, by all means, it would not go this way, right? It would have to go this way. If you put it on the car this way, that's going to be disc to disc, and that's a no-no. You need your friction material. So when you're installing it, see how this hat is raised, right? This goes in here, like so. And then this goes in, kind of locks it in place. Like that. And then this spins, you know, just like a regular clutch pretty much. Then you would just take this, inspect it. Man, that's crazy. It's copper, bro. So, if I'm not mistaken, the one clutch setup that everybody rants and raves about, supposed to be pretty good, is the copper mix from Nismo. And just looking at this thing, this is like, looks like it's all copper. Definitely different from the clutch that I ran in my DA in any car that I've run up until this point. But then you slide that in there, and it's the same thing. This flat surface, just make sure it's going to go up against your clutch, right? And then you just got to take this and you got to line that up. Easier said than done. Just like that. Then you just take your pressure plate and you put that on there. So let me go get that. I should have cleaned that before I got on film talking. And you just take your pressure plate and you're looking at it. I went ahead while I had it over there and just squirted it gingerly with my parts washer brake clean is what you're looking at. And I'm gonna wipe this down. Now, one of the important pieces with this, and I kind of wish I would have thought about it and marked it, and I didn't. If you come up against this on your own car, and you're not the one that originally had, did this, I'm going to tell you to mark it before you pop this off, because it is a certain way that this has got to go back on because it's been balanced and matched. And then you put it on there the wrong way, it's not going to, it can cause problems, it can vibrate and other things. Lucky for me, I kind of remember the spot where this was, which is the OS DSP 440, which is just a part number, I guess, for this pressure plate, because I ran that number in my initial research and nothing came up for me. But anyways, those letters and all were kind of towards the bottom when I pulled this thing apart. And that kind of lines right up with the balance mark. That's about right. Yeah, these balance marks line up with the initial balance that I had found. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stop the camera real quick, get this mounted up, and then I'll show you a little bit better on here on what I was just trying to describe. So hold tight. All right, guys. So I went ahead and then got everything installed. I went ahead as well as putting this in just to check. And something I want to talk to you guys about that I discovered, and I'm glad I did it. And while it's still fresh on my mind, let me tell you now. When you're putting your clutch disc, the actual clutch disc in, yeah, maybe it'll show here. If you look there, and then you look here. So look there, right? And then look here. It's like, it looks like it's a gap. So it's lines actually in the clutch packs. And actually, I got the old ones so I can show you a little bit better. Because it's a crazy detail that you need to make sure you got down. So these here. So what you're seeing when you see solid is, this part. When you see that gap, this is what you're seeing. So at first, when I first put that on, I had my discs in a format like that, right? and I was putting my tool in, and guess what? It felt like the tool was bottoming out, but I was just like, man, I don't think it is bottoming out. And then I looked and paid attention to this as I spun. I was rotating the clutch disc in the basket with the tool, and it looked like everything was moving, but it just didn't seem and feel right. So I popped it all back apart, and then I wind up lining my disc up just like this here. And then my tool, before I put the pressure plate back on this time, I wanted to see the depth of how far it would go in, right? It went further than it initially did, and I could really physically feel it bottoming out, and I could see it bottoming out. So when you're installing your triple or your twin plate clutch setup from OS Giken, use this as a guide to kind of help you make sure your splines are all lined up like they're supposed to, right? So I did that, and I popped the tool out. I popped it out of there, and then I went ahead and just started. I put my pressure plate back on, and then I slid this back in. I was like, let me just slide that back in there real quick, right? So I slid that back in, and then I just went around with my gun, and guess what I got? I finally got metric, and it's a 5 on the socket. I just went around and snugged it. I didn't like stand on it or hit it really hard. I just went all the way around and snugged it. So I gotta go like here. You can see it's not tight all the way yet. You know what I mean? So I just went around snugging it up. Now the one thing I want you guys to pay attention to is you can also see it like I was trying to explain to you there, right? Well, I guess you can't rotate it with it tight like that, but it's in there like it's supposed to be. But before I was moving this around, before I tighten these down, because this is now, I guess in effect, putting pressure on that. But either way, I can spin the crank and look at it as well. The other thing I wanted to show you guys and girls is here is the one weight that was taken out of the flywheel. And what I was saying earlier, a little bit ago, is you want your marks all lined up. So that's back to how they balanced it, wherever they had this balanced at. So yeah, so she's balanced properly. And that's it. So yeah, when you're doing this on your car, keep saying, if you're doing it on your side, and you just I caution you to take like a yellow or whatever marker, paint marker, or something, scribe it, mark it, whatever, so you make sure you put it right back on the same orientation. So these bolts here from OS Giken, they're either from 25 to 33 foot-pounds all the way around, and I'm going to do mine up at 30, even with the Loctite, just because it has that range, and I just want to get it tight. And it's pretty much going to be the same thing that I did before when I was tightening the flywheel. I'll use that bolt here and lock into the teeth here with my miniature pry bar, and I keep the crank from rotating. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to spin the crank, because the motor's in time, so that's not a problem. Spin the crank, and I want to just make sure this down here is moving like it's supposed to. But the good thing is, as you can, comes out nice and easy. That's what you want, of course. And she goes, and if you only get, because I was only getting about that before, and I thought I was there, but that's when you're home. So if you're doing this and you need to know if you're right, you got everything lined up. If you have about that much still sticking out, you're not home. There, she's all the way home. And I've verified that already. So I'm going to leave that in there. Well, actually, I'll slide it back out now. Tighten everything up, torque it, and then check it again and see where we are. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. As you can see, I am making progress with this build. Still a long ways to go, but I am more than, I would say I'm about 50% where I want to be. It's a couple of more systems As you remember, I talked to in another video, described it more like a system, right? So there's a couple of more systems that I want to address on this car, just to make sure she's in tip-top shape. But now it's like the engine and clutch systems are there. They're ready to go. The body system is there. But yeah, there's other systems that I wanna address and get right before she finally is, I ain't gonna say done, but finally to the point to where I can drive it and enjoy the car. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I'll be back soon with some more episodes. I am in the midst of my summer school. I'm taking this, it is a business class, is managerial, behavioral studies, psychology. So it's a very interesting class. It's all about for my business major that I'm in school for now. But anyways, yeah, check you guys on the next episode. I love you guys. Keep being the best versions of yourself and enjoy your life, man. Enjoy it. Life is short, but it's also sweet and it's meant to be lived to its fullest. But I went around and I started torquing these bolts, right? So I'm talking about are your M6 bolts, your Allen heads, right? So I went of the factory spec for these clutch bolts to be fine, and it was stupid of me because I thought I had seen on the OS Giken torque spec settings something, a different figure, and it was different. And I'm going to put the link to that spec sheet in this video so you guys can access it if you need it. And anyways, I went with the 30 foot-pound setting, and just want to show you this is what happened to me. It broke. So I just want to get out there and tell you guys 30 foot-pounds is going to be way too much for your OS Giken clutch setup. You got to stick to that 13 foot-pounds. And if you don't have a torque wrench that goes down to like 10 foot-pounds or whatever, fine, it's not a problem. Convert that to Newton meters, and that works out to like 17.5, 17.6, somewhere around there, Newton meters. And pretty much that's what I am doing. This is my torque wrench that I use for Newton meters, inch pounds. This is the one that I was showing you guys earlier with that one up there. So anyways, just like I said, do that, and you should be. So, all right, so this is take 2 for the ending of this video. Again, hope you guys enjoy. Keep being the best versions of yourselves that you can. Always give love and be loved. Know that I love you guys. Till the next episode, hope you guys keep enjoying. Peace.